Okay, welcome back to the Always Bayern Chelsea show, everybody. Today is Sunday, January 12th, as we record this one here. And just a few housekeeping items before we get into the matches, Chelsea in the FA Cup and Bayern in the Bundesliga. Two wins over the weekend, but yeah, this is another video episode as we got our setup up and running here. So check it out on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out last week's video episode as well if you want to get caught up with everything, because we also talked about how we're going to the Club World Cup in the summer and some other cool stuff that's going to be happening. So you won't want to miss it.
Yeah, and hopefully if you're watching this on Monday or Tuesday, I don't look like a fool wearing a Packers hat, and hopefully they win today, Sunday, while I'm recording. So could be interesting if you're watching this after Sunday.
Agreed. Go Pack, go. And yeah, another thing to mention too is if you need another reason to watch this video and to check it out is I crashed my hard drive editing the last video and exporting the last video. So um, years and years of data lost. But luckily, as a lesson to all you out there, you should probably back up your stuff in more than one place. So I was able to recover most of it, but just to let everybody know the pain and suffering and strife that I'm going through putting these episodes together.
Very important to note.
Yeah, and the other last thing to note, I think, before we jump in here is I'm going to be hopping on a bird in a couple days and heading down to the sunny state of California, San Diego, which right now has not been affected by the horrible, horrible fires there. So, we got a lot of matches coming up. Bayern's playing basically two matches a week, and Chelsea is, I think, for a little bit as well. So we'll make sure to get out content, but it might not be as regularly scheduled. So I'll see what I can do from down there.
Yeah, definitely excited for you to experience some warm weather. San Diego, known for being one of the best weather cities on the planet consistently year round, so should be a good time out there. And yeah, to all those, if we have any California listeners maybe out there, definitely thinking about you with the fires going on. Obviously, pretty terrible what's going on out there. So,
Yeah, it's true, and I will, I'll be sure to find a place that plays the Bayern game, out in public, hopefully. Otherwise, I'll just have to watch it at the place we're staying. And I think it's time now. We might as well jump right in because Chelsea played first. They had a big win on Saturday morning, 5-0 against. I don't even know how to say this team's name. Morecambe, maybe.
yeah, I think it's Morecambe. They
Yeah.
are basically bottom of the barrel right now in League Two, which is the fourth tier of English football. They're probably going to get relegated to the National League as it stands right now. Something like 80 some places below where Chelsea are at fourth in the Premier League. So pretty crazy that these teams match up, but that's the beauty of the FA Cup. And it was kind of how you'd expect. I predicted 5-1. They end up winning 5-0. Really, my main two takeaways from this match will be three things. Number one is that it's great to get back in the win column for Chelsea. Number two, it's great to see some injured players get back in action, which we will discuss. And number three, I think there's probably one player at least that is really competing for a spot in the main A team, if you will, with Chelsea, especially since they've been kind of down in the dumps a little lately. But those are my main takeaways.
Is that one player Joao Felix? Is that what you're thinking?
It is, yeah. And if we
Yeah.
if we honestly want to start there, I don't need to get into specifics of kind of this team. It's your B team Chelsea thrown in with a couple A team guys. I think Neto has been a Premier League guy, and then James and Lavia, I would argue as well. They're the two coming back from injury, which is great to see. But João Felix on the day, I thought was the best player, if not second best. And I think he's shown for a while now that he can be a creative force that Chelsea have been lacking a little bit. You can't just go to Cole Palmer for everything. And Nkunku hasn't shown he has what it takes in the Premier League yet. Jackson's up and down. The wingers are up and down. I think Felix deserves this run now. because yes, this is lesser competition. Yes, he's done it mostly against lesser competition, but he's that creative force that at any time can do a lot on the pitch, and that could be what Chelsea need.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I thought Felix was the best player on the pitch, really from the start. And he got those goals later on in the end of the match. But even when he didn't have those goals in the beginning, I still thought he looked like the best player on the pitch. And yeah, I think you got to start to use him in the Premier League if you're slumping or if your attack needs that spark. I don't really know why Enzo talks him up so much, but doesn't ever play him in the Premier League. I would say, I get it. He's kind of the same spot as Palmer, but I don't know. Throw Palmer out to the wing. Throw Felix out to the wing if you have to. I would say he's good enough to, maybe not start, but if you're, yeah, slumping and your attack is not looking creative as they really haven't looked too creative in the last couple of Premier League games, throw him in there and see if he brings that spark.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned it, the tough part is finding that position for him. He could play where Palmer plays. Are you going to bench Palmer? No. He could probably play where Enzo plays, kind of that left side opposite of where Palmer is in that attacking midfield. Are you going to bench Enzo? Also, probably not. So, whether you throw Felix on the wing, which is where I'd probably test him out at this point, um, because I don't see them putting Palmer on the right wing at this time. I think you could, and I've talked about it at length, but I just don't think Enzo's going to do that. But you might as well throw him on the wing, and then if it doesn't work, fine, bring Sancho back in or whoever else. But you might as well see how things go because you need something at this point. You need a spark.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Felix really is the man to do that. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the match, he wasn't scoring, but he basically caused a penalty that unfortunately Chelsea missed. But um, yeah, I don't know. He just seemed so comfortable in controlling the match, and I think as a whole in the beginning, even though Chelsea wasn't scoring, they were dominating the match. They were controlling possession. The ball was in the other half pretty much the entire match.
Agreed. Yeah. Felix has been kind of criticized in the past for not doing a lot of off the ball work and not hustling. What he's shown this year is he is doing that, and that's a huge part of why I want to see him get time as well. Guys like Nkunku just aren't doing that as much, and he looks disinterested at this point. I'll be honest. He's leading the team basically, I think tied with Palmer in goals now at this point, has scored in all four competitions, and yet looks like he doesn't care and wants to be out. And I'm not saying I believe every report that's out there, but I want guys that want to fight for their spot and will do whatever it takes. Will play any position that Maresca asks them to, because that's how you build the best team possible.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. I also think though a little bit of the onus might be on Maresca because if you really have some guys that are that talented, Nkunku, Felix, I think you'll find more ways to get them in a match when you're struggling mightily in the attack against Everton, Palace, whoever. Um, I think, he has to find a way to do it, but it's also, like you said, on the players. It is on Nkunku to, do more of that off the ball stuff and really make the most of his opportunities, which he hasn't really in the Premier League. I mean, he's been amazing in the Conference League and some matches like this in these cup matches, but yeah, it's just tough. It's tough to keep everybody happy when you have that much talent, and it's tough to push all the right buttons, basically. And I will say, this lineup was a little bit better than I expected. I thought that the lineup wasn't really going to look like this. I wasn't sure if James would be healthy, if Lavia would be healthy, and I didn't think Enzo would play guys like Neto and the subs he made too. He brought in Cucurella, he brought in Gusto. He brought in Sancho, I believe. So, he was giving a lot of the first teamers, quote unquote, or guys who are close to being on that first team, meaningful minutes in this one.
Yeah, I think Maresca's still figuring out how he wants to build this team, the which buttons he kind of wants to press, if you will. I think the FA Cup is something that managers across the Premier League take very seriously. The lineups that I've been seeing this weekend have all been very strong for the most part.
Agreed.
So Chelsea, yeah, kind of opted for no academy guys. Tyrique George at this point is not an academy player. Him and Ah Chimpong have essentially been promoted, if you saw the video where they got their own locker and everything. So those two being on the team sheet, really you could kind of argue they're the younger players, but yeah, strong team overall. And I think part of the puzzle pieces that Maresca is dealing with right now includes the guys that are injured. Now he's trying to work back Reece James and Romeo Lavia from injury, supremely talented and important players for this Chelsea team. How does he decide to work them in? And he basically makes a decision that he's going to play him 45 minutes against Morecambe, which I think is brilliant because it's zero pressure. You ease them back in, and then you can go from there playing them 45 to 60 in a Premier League type match next.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in the Premier League right now. Chelsea is desperately hurting for Reece James and even Lavia, I think, at times, but mostly James, to be healthy. So I hope that Reece is able to get healthy and stay healthy for a while. He's just struggled with injuries for so long, and I think he can be such an important part of this Chelsea team. Obviously, he plays a position that Chelsea kind of needs more strength at, more chutzpah maybe at. But even more so, I think at times Chelsea does look lost, and I don't want to say immature because they are clearly more mature than they were last season, for instance. But I just think James is that type of a guy who can truly be a leader in more ways than just how he plays, basically.
Yeah, if there's one weak spot for Chelsea, it's their defending line, that back four. Reece James can provide leadership, cover. I've talked about how Gusto hasn't been the greatest right back this season thus far. So he's going to be huge if he can get back and healthy. And if a guy like Tosin can step up as he did in this match, that would be huge as well. You know, he's a depth piece that you don't necessarily want starting all these Premier League matches, but it's great to see that a guy can, in a match where this lower level team is just playing such a deep block, and the only player that has space is your deepest, furthest back defending center back. He was essentially the playmaker in that first half and a little bit in the second half. He had the most space, and he ends up getting two goals out of it, which was awesome to see. That Chelsea can kind of figure out how to play against these teams when they're really defending tough. You know, even if they're lower sides, when you're putting all of your players, 11 players, in front of the ball like that, it's going to be tough to score. And for Tosin to get a couple goals, really happy for him. Good to see a smile on his face.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought, for the most part, Chelsea was controlling the match because of how deep Morecambe was playing. Um, they were still not finishing, I guess, in the very start of the match. They were controlling things, but they were lacking that finishing touch, really until Tosin kind of broke things open. And it was because, yeah, like you said, he had so much space. I mean, to have him be so far on the other team's half and have so much space before there's, a defender in front of him, he kind of just, it seemed like, thought, well, I might as well take a shot here. And I think it was maybe the first one that kind of hit that deflection, which was unlucky. Um, you know, it was a deserved goal in the sense that he had that space and the goal was eventually going to come and things were eventually going to break for Chelsea, meaning that they would have many more opportunities and, that was going to be that.
Yeah, it was huge to get that first one in the back of the net. Just to run through the rest of the goals, Nkunku puts one in off a deflection from a Vega shot. Tosin scores a screamer for his second, and then Felix with a couple of really nice goals. But I do want to discuss the left side of the defense here because the second half, three subs that were made right at half, Gusto, Cucurella, Sancho, Vega kind of moved to a DM role. Cucurella was the difference in the match for me. I'm not necessarily going to say man of the match, but he maybe could be because him coming in was the reason Chelsea really started firing on all cylinders on the offensive attack. He really opened things up on that left side, was making great overlapping runs, constantly getting the ball crossed back across. So he was huge. Vega moving to that defensive midfield role was just interesting. And now we have this other wrinkle where we see Cucurella is our star left back, if you will. He's going to start in the Premier League matches, and you're thinking, okay, Vega might get some time here and there. Well, a twist. Sounds like Vega might be ending up in the Bundesliga with Dortmund. Huge news this morning. Sounds like he's like agreed terms with Dortmund, and now Dortmund's trying to figure it out with Chelsea, whether it's going to be a loan option to buy. But it's being reported. I've seen multiple reports, so that really makes me wonder what Chelsea are doing, what their left side is going to be, what their defensive midfielders are going to be. But really something to watch here in the next few days and couple weeks here.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I guess you got to hope James is healthy for the most part. I don't know if Gusto uh is going to be the long-term solution anywhere back there. Um, but yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard recently any news, but I was hearing reports for a while that Leverkusen was interested in Disasi. I don't know if you've heard anything recently about that, but I mean, it would make sense with Jonathan Tah almost certainly leaving the club in the summer.
Yeah, I'm sure Disasi will leave. That would be my guess.
Mine
The
too.
interesting thing about Vega leaving would be, as I mentioned, you know, I mean, first of all, you don't really have a left back cover. It would be Colwill as your backup left back, but you really don't have defensive midfield cover either because Vega's your flex option there, which he showed in this game against Morecambe. So leads me to believe that they are thinking about recalling Leslie Ugochukwu or Andre Santos. The reports have kind of been that Santos isn't going to be recalled. He's actually playing right now for Strasbourg. They were up 2-1 last I checked, but I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see what Chelsea decide to do there because defensive midfield, they need that cover because I don't trust Lavia being healthy.
Is there any way that like Achimpong could kind of shift and fill a role like that? I mean, he's so young. I don't really know exactly what his profile is.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Achimpong is my number one right center back, to be honest. I don't think he's going to play every Premier League match because you need to ease in 18-year-old lads. But yeah, he's definitely going to be getting a lot of time going forward.
So
The
maybe
only
they could
thing is,
shift
like,
some things around. I don't know.
yeah, the only thing is, like, let's say Cucurella gets hurt and you need somebody to play your traditional left back position. Who's that going to be? Is it going to be Colwill? Like, you'd rather have him be your left center back. So that's
Maybe
kind of
could you put James over there and then like try out Gusto again or
Yeah,
somebody, I
like
guess, at right back?
we've seen them do that, put James or Gusto at left back, and it's just kind of this experiment that's weird, I guess. But I don't know. If you're inverting over there, you could. I mean, we've seen Cucurella score in that advanced inversion role, and he had the same exact shot yesterday that almost went in too. So maybe you almost could have a guy that's right-footed over there. I don't know. Just definitely something to watch as this window comes to a close.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could change up your formation a little bit. It certainly didn't look in this match like Chelsea was doing their normal 4-2-3-1. It looked more like attacking heavy. At least that's the shape that I was seeing. I don't know if it really was a defined shape even, but um, yeah, so I maybe you could change the formation. I think Cucurella had an assist in this one, I believe, didn't he, at the very end? Was that on one of Felix's goals at the end? That if I'm remembering it correctly, it was an amazing finish by Felix, a great strike, but also just kind of like you were saying, Cucurella is getting involved in the attack.
Yeah, I believe it was an assist from him. And so, yeah, depending on how advanced that guy is, Maresca could really opt for a number of moves, I suppose. But yeah, that's kind of all I have on this match. It's more just about looking ahead and can Chelsea get their momentum back, get back to winning ways. They already played Tuesday against Bournemouth, so it's going to be a huge, huge match. Next two matches at home, Bournemouth, and then I want to say Wolves in the weekend. So being at the bridge, you got to get these wins, and you just have to get this momentum.
Agreed. Do you have any awards to give out for this one?
I mean, I kind of said Felix is probably the best player on the day.
Hmm.
I'll give Tosin his love that he deserves. George, I do want to shout out because he had two assists and he looks like he's a couple steps away from getting some Premier League time. Those are kind of the three I'd give some shout outs to. And I do just want to say Jorgensen is not doing enough to warrant starts in the Prem over Sanchez at this point, in my opinion.
I agree with you. He looked very unsure of himself and very nervous in this one. At least three times where he bobbled a ball that he should have caught and then was kind of bailed out. And against better teams, Premier League teams, that'll come back to bite you, I think. I gave Felix the man of the match and I gave Tosin the Robin. So I think we're right in line there. I think maybe Cucurella coming in, I would give the defender, or I mean, I would give the moment of the match award to because I had James as my defender just because I think his communication is so important for that back line, and Cucurella didn't come in until the second half. Um, but I actually thought George had a really nice game, so I had him listed as my underrated player. Yeah, it's not easy to kind of come into a squad that's like already relatively established.
Yeah, always important to have young guys be able to come in and only boosts confidence for the rest of the academy. So huge.
All right, should we move on over to Bayern Munich now?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Bayern had a 1-0 victory over Borussia Mönchengladbach yesterday, right after the Chelsea match. And Gladbach, if you didn't know, is Bayern's bogey team, especially as of late. Gladbach also has beaten Bayern more than any other team in Germany. The original Der Klassiker was Gladbach and Bayern, so kind of a historic team who maybe has taken a few steps back in recent years, but they still have some real good players. Tim Kleindienst is one of the better players in the Bundesliga. He made some appearances for the German national team as well, so definitely. I don't know, a match not to overlook when you're coming back off of a pause and you still have a lot of injuries. And, Musiala was sick for this one, and Upamecano was not playing due to a yellow card accumulation. So, a little bit nervous going into the match, but I was excited to watch it. And overall, you take the 3 points and you run.
Yeah, I've said it a thousand times at this point. A win is a win, especially for Bayern as Leverkusen is trying to creep up on them in the standings. But I didn't actually realize that about Upamecano. I was hoping Company was giving Dyer a start just to kind of mix him in. So makes me respect Vincent a little less. But nonetheless, I think Dyer was just great to see him either way. But yeah, I thought the lineup was good in terms of what I kind of wanted to see from them in terms of Sane, Olise, obviously Kane. Muller is just interesting, Musiala being out, it's unfortunate for them that I don't want to say have to stoop down to Muller because he's historically talented, but it just does suck that you go from Musiala to kind of a guy that's aging out of the squad a little bit. But nonetheless, I thought it was a strong lineup for what they did have.
Yeah, it was their traditional 4-2-3-1. It was great to see Neuer back. This was his first match back in between the sticks from injury when he broke those ribs, basically body checking Frimpong in that infamous DFB Pokal moment there. So it was good to see him back. Quite frankly, they didn't have any other options. Peretz bruised his kidney and was rushed to the hospital in training this week, and I still don't exactly know what's going on with Sven. He's there sometimes in training and then he isn't. So Neuer was really the man. We saw Konrad Leimer at right back, another really solid match from him at right back. I thought, Stanisic had a setback, which was a bummer because I really wanted to see him. He was one of the players I was super excited for coming back this year, and he hasn't played at all. But I think Leimer is seriously challenging for that right back position. Now that Boué is hurt again, like seemingly always, and yeah, Stanisic had that setback. You mentioned it. Good to see Dyer in there. I thought both the center backs did very good this match, Dyer and Kim. as well as Davies on the left back side. But yeah, I hope this gives Company some reason to start to rotate Dyer in more because you can't just play Upa and Kim 90 minutes every match. We saw that last year with Tuchel, and they were injured and making a lot of mental mistakes by the end of the year. The midfield was Kimmich and Goretzka. Pavlovic hasn't been himself since his collarbone injury. I was fine to see Goretzka starting. Goretzka had a real nice match, I thought, and so did Kimmich. But um, yeah, I think he is in Pavlovic. I think was rushed back a little bit from this collarbone injury. I get it. He's a young kid. He was doing great. Company called him the best player on the team. He probably really wants to play, but um, yeah, I just he clearly wasn't himself. And then yeah, you kind of talked about the attackers: Olise, Muller, Zane, Kane.
Yeah, a couple things to note out of that. First I'd say I thought defense was strong and I was happy to see that, although they're not doing as much defending per se when you're controlling the ball. But yeah, I agree on Limer. I think he's been super strong. Do need to see him put in a huge performance against a top side, I think. But yeah, he's definitely doing what he needs to at this point. And I will just kind of pile on to your Pavlovich point and say that I hate to kind of be right here, but it's what I was worried about. I had mentioned when you're coming back from an injury like that, where you break such a key bone that like happens when you fall, you're not going to be as aggressive. You got to make sure the mental side of your game is back. And when you are potentially rushed back, because we both were shocked when he came back, you're just not going to be close to 100%. So I think that's a shame. And I don't think it's going to hurt him long term, mentally or physically. But I just, I worry sometimes about young guys that stuff like this can kind of hurt them. So I really hope they kind of take care of him mentally, physically, and get him back to the player that he can be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I thought it was too early as well right away, for him to come back because yeah, it's exactly like you said, that mental side of the game. Um, even if you're physically cleared to play, it's just not going to be the same. We saw that, and I again want to praise Goretzka because I thought he had a great match. I mean, he played like a true eight. He was making tackles and challenges in the back, and then also contributing massively to the attack. Actually, missed a shot that he probably should have made. A cross came in, and he had a beautiful first touch. I mean, like caught it out of the air and put it right to where he needed to strike it home, but then just missed the shot. Um, so, Goretzka is someone who I think deserves the spot in the starting lineup, and same with Limer. Limer, I also need to keep reiterating he's playing out of position. So while he sometimes makes questionable positioning decisions, maybe for a right back, he overall is doing a great job. I mean, the man never stops running. To run full speed for 90 minutes straight seems like it should be some sort of human achievement in the record books or something, because he really gives it his all. And yeah, like you said, I don't think he's the right back to really shock the world against the best competition in Europe. Hell, he's a midfielder. So we'll still want Stanisic and Boué to get healthy, but yeah, a good day for Limer, a good day for the whole defense, like I said. And yeah, the first half, I actually loved how Bayern was playing. They controlled the match beautifully. Yeah, I don't know what the stats were or anything, but it seemed like they had all of the possession. I don't even know if Gladbach got a shot off in that first half, and it was just awesome. Bayern was playing exactly how I wanted them to, but they did just lack that finishing touch, and it was so frustrating at times. And as the match wore on, it got more frustrating and almost comical at how bad they were at the final shot.
Mueller had that first big miss, point blank range. Beautiful save by the keeper, but something that you got to put away. The first half, yeah, just offered like a few of these pretty large chances. And as you said, Bayern did dominate possession in the first half. As I'm looking here at the stats, 76% in that first half, 1.3 xG. Whereas second half they had less, 57%, but almost 3 xG. So it almost at times I think suited Bayern to have the game open up just a hair more. And I'm not saying that you are going to purposely give the ball to the other side, but it could be a reflection of maybe the opponent trying a little more to be aggressive and be out on the front foot, and then Bayern taking advantage of that in the second half. But yeah, that first half was all Bayern, as you said, no shots, um, given up, and taken by Gladbach. So pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was an interesting match because on one hand I'm happy with how we played, but it's getting too far into the season for these attackers to be playing like this, quite frankly. And I'm gonna probably just crucify the attackers here for a second. Um, Nobody's really safe except for maybe Kane and Olise. But first of all, Sane, bad match. He's getting on his birthday too, which was sad, but he's getting absolutely shredded by everybody. So I'm not going to pile on necessarily. And I also don't think it's helpful all the time to just take down one player because there's so much that's involved in a soccer match. And I see fans all over the place for every team just, basically scapegoating individual players, saying that they're the reason we lost, whatever. And it's so much more than that. So I don't think it's helpful. I think it's mean, I guess. And I also just want to provide a little bit something else. So it wasn't a good match from Leroy Sané. He should have been subbed out sooner. It's a shame, but um, I'm glad he got the shot. I'm glad he's getting a chance to kind of win over that left wing spot because Coman and Gnabry are never ever healthy. So, um, but yeah, bad performance by him. Muller, I actually thought did pretty good. The problem with Muller is it seems like nobody really knows how to play with him. Muller was the most creative attacker, I would say, maybe bar Olise, but we'll get to him. But yeah, Muller was really opening things up and being creative, but none of the wingers and even Kane really seemed to know how to play with him and to like completely be on the same page with him, which is a shame because I think he could be doing a lot more. We talked about it a little bit, right? Like he got his chances and he didn't put them away, so there's also that. Um, Elise, I thought had a solid match. Um, he was probably the best player on Bayern overall. Although you could say Kimmich and you could say some of the defenders, I guess, but Olise was the best attacker. Let me just put it like that. However, he does, um, he did this a couple times in this match, and he does do this so far with Bayern, where he does miss some open guys. He missed Kane open a couple times and decided to take his own shot. So I'd like to see him link up with Kane more. Olise is super young and he's so new to Bayern, so I don't want to sound like I'm ripping on him because I'm impressed with how quickly he's integrated into this squad, honestly, and how well he's done this year. He's Bayern's best winger by far right now, but he did miss Kane, and he does tend to look for his own shot a little bit too much, I think. Kane was at times irrelevant. But is that on Kane or is that because these wingers are just looking to shoot and not find him? It's tough to tell. Kane had the only goal. He had that penalty. So overall, I'm happy with him. There's different ways to affect a match, but yeah, it wasn't the best showing by the attacking group yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to digest there, and it's tough to say really what the issue was. In a match where you end up with a crazy amount of big chances and a lot of XG, but it seems like half your attack was pretty poor. Sane obviously poor just due to the level of chances he had and what he was not able to do with those. But yeah, I think Elise is your best attacker on a day like this. But at the same time, he just needs to work on that relationship with Kane, I think. Elise probably too left foot dominant at this point. I think he tries to cut in at times too often onto that left foot, and then defenders step up, and from there you either have to pass it back out to a defender or something else. I think he needs to learn that it's okay to just cross it in instead of cutting in, or maybe try going to the right and using your right foot. You need to vary your options. I think he's super solid, and as you said, one of the best players on the day. But looking at Kane's heat map as well, I just can't quite figure out the type of player that he wants to be sometimes. We've talked about if he's dropping deep, if he needs to stay more in the box. And based on where he was, I think against a team that's going to defend more, you do need to stay in the box a little bit more often. He ends up with two shots on the entire game, one of them being a penalty. So you got a guy like Olise that can cross the ball better than 95% of players in the world.
Kimmich too, I
I
would
think you
argue.
need, yeah, and I think you just need to be there more for those opportunities. Just my opinion. And I know Kane can be a playmaker. Obviously, we've discussed, but um, you do need to get off more shots, I think, ultimately, if you're Harry Kane.
Yeah, so the thing with Kane, um, I have a really hard time deciding what's actually going on. And I think it's most likely a little of column A, a little of column B. Column A, like you were talking about, he just needs to be in the box more. I think that's true. But then I also see when he's in the box, Bayern's wingers just don't really find him. Like I was talking about Olise a couple times, shot it when he could have easily found Kane. So it's like, does Kane feel like he just needs to drop back and be more part of the build-up? Is that maybe part of the plan? I mean, Muller's clearly the one leading the press, and that's how I want it. Honestly, Muller, I think, is the best on the team at leading the press. Um, so it's just tricky, I don't exactly know. I think, like I said, part of it's on Kane to be in the box more, and part of it's on these wingers to just be better because Bayern does have a winger problem. I mean, you watch the game today, and we'll get in the game yesterday. We'll get into it about the second half of the match, but there were some bad misses.
Yeah, it's tough, the winger thing. And I go back and forth every single time we're talking about how wingers are just so inconsistent. And I struggle to see if there's a good winger in this world that can string together performance after performance. I just don't know if it's possible. So I think Bayern, as time goes on here in the second half of this season, just needs to really work on their connection with their main players, Kane, Olise, Muller, Musiala, and then whoever they really think is the best option on that left wing.
Yeah, agreed. And the other thing too is health. Like they just got to stay healthy. That's really what they've been struggling to do so far. But getting into the second half of this match, it was almost a completely different match in the second half. I think Gladbach, at halftime was like, all right, we did it in the first half. We stayed back and defended. We held them to 0 goals. We frustrated them. And now we're going to try to score. Now we're going to be aggressive and offensive. And it wasn't maybe a total 180, but it was maybe a 120 in how they played in the second half, meaning Gladbach. Because yeah, right out of the gate, they were much more aggressive, and I think it took Bayern by surprise because they were uh, Gladbach was getting chances, quite frankly. And the second half, really, as it went on, got more and more open and more nervy and more unnecessarily, I don't know, crazy, chaotic.
Yeah, I think guys lose their legs in second half of matches, which, rightfully makes sense. Because of that, things open up more. You're going to be less locked in defensively. You're going to have more giveaways that are easy to the other team. So certainly didn't surprise me that that happened. As you mentioned, it's pretty tough to have an entire match where you just kind of lock in so much defensively. So yeah, as I said, Bayern, with like 3 XG in the second half alone. So was really amazing that, as we've said, they didn't score more. And whether you blame that on, all those attackers or just sometimes luck, but yeah, I did think Bayern would end up with more than that lone goal in that second half for sure.
Yeah, and one place where maybe they could have got a goal was a handball that wasn't called on Gladbach. We talked about that a little bit. I thought it was a handball. Um, the ball was kind of above the defender's head, and hey, if you watch the video, you can see what I'm doing. He kind of went like this and put his hands above his head, and the ball just went off of his hands. I think it should have been a penalty. I'm not going to be here begging for a penalty, I guess. Because yeah, eventually later on, the penalty that Bayern did get was kind of a soft one. So just interesting. The handball rule is just so bad, in my opinion. It's very subjective. I've seen calls happen for Bayern, against Bayern, whatever, in other Bundesliga matches where I'm like, how is that a handball? And then something like this wasn't. So it's just strange at times.
Yeah, no surprise. Reffing decisions are almost the front page on every match. So something like that is just what happens with referee decisions in every league across Europe and the world. So unfortunate for Bayern to not get that one. They do get one later. They deserve to win the game based on chance creating alone. So, ultimately they do end up with a goal and kind of worked out a little bit in a sense. So depending on how you look at it, but yeah, good pen by Kane. Penalties are just I could almost have an entire episode on penalties alone, with the technique of how guys take them. Kane kind of went with a stutter step and then ended up going to the right. I don't think the keeper had any chance. Kane, I think, saw him dive the opposite way, so well taken.
Yeah, and I mentioned it, that penalty might have been a little bit soft. Olise went down in the box, basically in front of a goal scoring opportunity. And it probably would have been a goal if he didn't go down, to be honest. Although with the way Bayern was finishing this match, who really knows? But live, I thought it was clear as day, a pen. And then I watched the replay, and oh, it was a little bit soft, but he did get pushed twice in the box. So was it a little bit of a dive? Yeah. But was there contact? Yeah. And then, like you said, Kane buried the pen. He hasn't missed for Bayern. I think he's like 26 for 26 in his last penalty shots. But if I'm remembering correctly, if I have the stats right, he hasn't missed since that infamous World Cup miss against France there for England. So, yeah, I mean, Kane's as automatic as it comes from the spot. And like I was saying earlier, he was invisible at times, but when it comes to impact the match in a way that gives you the lone goal to win, he was there and he did it.
Yeah, you always got to step up and take it, and credit to him for doing that.
Yeah, so after that, things got really crazy. I mentioned that I thought Sané should have been subbed out earlier. We saw Coman come in for Muller actually, which I thought Muller was actually playing well, and I probably would have just done the Coman for Sané, like for like sub at that point, and then subbed Muller off a little bit later. Nonetheless, Coman turned out to be the best sub. Gnabry, not as much. I thought they were both fine, but we'll get into this in a second. Coman actually made a very positive impact on the match, I thought. Again, couldn't finish, but fresh legs were needed at that point as Sane was kind of sulking a little bit. And right before he got subbed off, he missed a wide open net. The keeper made a mistake and rushed up, and Zane got past him and then airmailed the ball, 10 feet above the post. So, again, frustrating day for Zane, but after that, the match got even more crazy because Gladbach had some chances. Kleindienst missed a header that he buries 95 times out of 100. This was actually before Bayern's goal, so this would have given Gladbach a 1-0 lead. But he got above whoever it was, probably Dyer or Kim, and had a pretty clear shot with a header, but maybe jumped a little bit too early and just missed the post by a millimeter. So everybody started to have chances after that. I mentioned the Zane chance. Bayern had a 4-on-1 that they somehow flubbed and missed. Gnabry had one of the easiest shots I've ever seen in my life and missed it. And it was totally just a cluster F at the end there because I don't know. The rails came off. The ref lost control of the match. Um, Gladbach was clamoring for a foul on Kim in the box. That wasn't a foul. I'll just say that. Um, and there were other times where, yeah, things were just totally out of control. But again, unnecessarily tough, but Bayern came out with the win.
Yeah, it was interesting. I agree with the subs. I've said in the past, I don't think I ever play Muller 90 minutes just due to his age and fitness. I just think it's tough. I'd rather see him be 100% for 60. Sane pretty much easily deserved to come off. He was poor. I think I texted you, sell him immediately for what he did with that miss. So, and then in terms of, some of those chances Bayern had, they seem to be a team that don't know how to have a good breakaway. You mentioned they have like this 4-on-1. They had multiple breakaways where it was 3-on-2, even 3-on-3. But like a lot of these times, even if it's 3-on-3, you have the advantage because you're just pushing ahead and you can make these runs. They never made the right pass in any of them, it seemed like. It was weird. It was like they just would do it a little bit late or guys wouldn't know where to go with the ball. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. You have some of this talent, and these are some of the easier goals you can score. Um, but again, that just maybe comes with time and so many guys being mixed in and out. But nonetheless, they are creating chances, so it's tough to say maybe um, that they were doing it poorly. They just need to maybe work on some finishing as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's at this point I'm getting fed up with it in terms of I think it's too late in the season to be playing like this because they're doing everything else great. And it's so tough, but this is the match to watch if you want to see why I'm frustrated with the play of their wingers, bar Olise mostly. Um, because yeah, like you said, they're missing golden opportunities and they're so much faster than the defense. Guys like Zane, even guys like Limer and Davies, who are so far inverted that they're basically attackers in matches like this when teams are so far back. Those fullbacks or those wingbacks are basically attackers, especially Davies. Davies might have missed a shot too. I mean, there were just so many like absurd misses for Bayern in this match, but these wingers are doing such a good job of tracking back, even like doing other things off the ball, playing defense, completely interlapping with each other. Olise, Sane, Gnabry, Coman are so good at tracking back, and they're almost um, like playing this fluid style. And you throw Kimmich in there too, because I've said it before, but when Bayern is on the ball, Kimmich is basically an attacker. Kimmich should have had probably 3 assists on the day where he lobs a perfectly good ball in the box and then, you know, Olise, Sane, Coman, Gnabry just can't put it away. So it's weird. It's frustrating and it's weird, but ultimately, I said it when I was talking about the first half. I love how they're playing. They just have to have that finishing touch. And was Musiala missed? Yes, Musiala was missed greatly. But is it bigger than that? Yeah, I think it probably is bigger than that.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. It's not like Musiala will be out long term. Clearly an important piece for them. Um, but yeah, it is frustrating at times. You take the win, you try to get better, and hopefully those shots start falling.
Agreed, and I think that's a good enough place to leave this match with our discussion of it. Bayern plays Hoffenheim on Wednesday, and Wolfsburg over the following weekend from now. So they have some matches coming up here in the Bundesliga that they have to win because Leverkusen is burning hot, red hot right now. I've watched their last 3 matches, maybe more, and they are looking sharp. They scored within 20 seconds against Dortmund over the weekend on Friday and had 3 goals probably in like 20 minutes or something. That was a wild match. That was a fun. Bundesliga attacking style match. But holy cow, yeah, Leverkusen is hot, and I don't know if they're gonna lose this Rook Runda at all again. I'm not saying they're gonna be like last year. I think playing in the Champions League and the Pokal will probably catch up to them, and they'll probably have some draws here and there. But the way they're playing right now, I'm not sure why Xabi Alonso was so conservative in certain matches in the beginning of the year, because the way he's playing now, it looks like how they played last year, and Bayern's going to have to keep winning, and then play that match on February 15th, I believe, in Leverkusen to kind of put a stamp on the Bundesliga and hopefully stay atop the table.
Yeah, I think Leverkusen was always going to come down from where they were in terms of playing as well as they did last year, scoring so many late goals. I was not surprised at all to see them start the season with a bit of a dip, and then they were all always going to come back up after that dip. So certainly is probably where I expected it to be at this point.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it's a two-horse race right now. A lot of people called the league for Bayern months ago, so I don't play that game, really. I don't want to make sensationalist takes or anything, but I have a hard time seeing anybody competing with Bayern and Leverkusen in the Rückrunde here, especially if Frankfurt loses Marmoush. Leipzig looked solid today. Xavi Simons is back and had at least a brace, might have had 3 goals. Can't remember, but Dortmund hasn't been consistent enough, although they are looking better so far. They're getting their feet under them with Nuri Sahin there for sure. But yeah, I really don't see anybody else being consistent enough. Although, little Bundesliga plug here, the table right now from like 11th to 5th is separated by 4 points, I want to say. And there's so many. 11th to like 6th is probably separated by 2 points or something. So there's a really fun race in that kind of middle of the table for the European spots right now.
Sounds like it'll be a great finish.
Yeah. Well, I think we can wrap it up with that. And like I said, stay tuned. I don't know what the San Diego life will do to me in terms of producing stuff here, but we'll definitely have some reactions coming up to all these big matches, whether that's video, whether that's audio. I don't exactly know right now, but um, definitely stay tuned because we'll keep you posted with everything. And the transfer window is blazing right now. It's open, the January transfer window, so things are starting to fall there. Um, there's always a lot of news to cover. Do you have anything else to put out there before we send off?
No, just that Fabrizio is tweeting about Vega now. So about 7 minutes ago, sounds like he wants to go there because he'd play his preferred position of center back at Dortmund. So we'll watch what happens there.
Yeah, a lot of big stuff happening, and stay tuned. We will keep you posted. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Mia San Mia.
Up to Chelsea.